Hi everyone, I'm here with Dr. Giesels today, and we'll be doing our first State of the District. Thank you for being here, Dr. Giesels.
Thank you.
Let's start off with our questions. So first, let's start with the obvious. There's been a lot of talk about budget cuts here in the district. Can you give us a quick heads up about what's real, what's gossip, and what's really happening with the state of our finances?
I like that you said the state of our finances, because what's going on with Pleasanton is not unusual at all. What's going on in our surrounding districts, what's going on in the state and the country, people are really feeling the effects of the COVID money going away, which was funding us only one time. Everyone's experiencing declining enrollment too. So for example, the more students you have in a school, in a district, the more money you make, and it's also based on attendance, and I want to compliment you because Amador's attendance is so great. It's really high, 97, 98%. And it's based on other things that people are going through, and I can get into this. We're talking about inflation. We're talking about, having to make sure we attract talent and retain our teachers and support staff and leaders in the district. And it's not unique to us. It's in the state and it's across the country, and I can go into all of those points deeper if you'd like.
That'd be great, actually. So if we want to talk about numbers, just how much money does the school district have right now? And do you have like a big reserve of money? Is there money going in and out?
That's a great question. So what happens is that our operating budget is around $214 million. That is year to year, right? And we are required by the state to have 3% reserves. That's the minimum. It's called economic certainty or uncertainty. Just simply say we're required to have 3% reserves. The thing is with those things I talk about with the declining enrollment, inflation, COVID money going away, those kinds of things, that is being experienced throughout our surrounding districts and the state. When you project out 3 years, which we have to show certainty that we have those 3% reserves in 3 years, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it. And that's what's precipitating the need to realign our resources and make reductions in our expenditures.
So you're saying that we're not going to make it. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is we're not going to make our 3% reserves unless we go through reductions. And in order to be what the county calls the County of Alameda School Office of Education, what they say is you have to make reductions in order to make your 3% minimum reserves over 3 years.
Okay. According to board member Mary Jo Carrion's email, if we're losing 1,600 students and it's $1.2 million per 100 students, that adds up to about $20 million. Is that true?
The situation has been, over the 4 years, as we've declined in enrollment. It's a great question. As we've declined in enrollment, we've proportionally scaled down our variable costs, meaning our costs of, for example, teachers and expenditures that are tied directly to student enrollment. That has already gone down, scaled. So we've already made commensurate reductions, not cuts. It's just we spend less when we have fewer students. We spend less if we have fewer students commensurate with enrollment, right, and budget. So we're still looking at about, to right size, we're still looking at about $8 to $13 million. We'll get a better picture of that with the first interim. We just did the unaudited actuals. December is the first interim, and then we will look at the budget from the governor in January. Now, it might say, well, why don't you know it's 8 to 12 million? Well, because the way Pleasanton is funding, it is based on mostly state revenue, right? And state revenue is attached to income tax, capital tax, and things like that. So we're pretty closely tied to the business cycle. When things go up, the state budget goes up. When it goes down, it goes down. So there is variance there. There is some uncertainty. And barring something like a recession or something that, we're looking at the range, or a great boom, we're looking at the range, or a sudden increase in enrollment. Like, come on, we're the go-to district, come here. We're looking at about $8 to $12 million that we have to address now for the 25-26 school year.
All right.
Not this year. The reductions this year have already been commensurate to reductions that were made by ratcheting down full-time equivalents, and you just need fewer people proportionally to the number of students. Now, that brings along the idea, which is kind of part two of that. What we've not been able to address fully are fixed costs, those costs that remain the same as they were at when we were 15,000 and change in enrollment. And those fixed costs are things like the district office, technology, maintenance operation, how school administration and support services have been allocated for resources. And so what you saw last night by our chief business official, Ahmad Shigul Islami, was that we have to address around $8 to $13 million and only about 24 or 25% of the budget that we can address.
So actually, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that we're overpaying our district leaders and that there are more people than needed in the district office. How will you respond to those claims?
Well, let me just say that talent is the most important thing in an organization. It really, really is. And I think it's important to pay all of our people to want to come to PUSD, team PUSD, and want to stay. And whether it's administration or our custodial staff, food services, especially our frontline people with everything from teachers to special ed, paraprofessionals and the like, we want quality staff, and compensation is important. To give you an example, we were pretty much by all measures completely staffed in all quarters of the district when we started school this year, and particularly in special ed where there's some pretty hard positions to fill.
So I've heard that our district, Pleasanton, is actually funded differently than a lot of the surrounding school districts. Do you know anything about that?
No, I sure do. There's something called the locally controlled funding formula, and as a result, believe it or not, Pleasanton, 9 out of 10 schools in California are funded more than we are. I'll say that again, 9 out of 10 schools are funded more. And it makes you want to scratch your head because our median income is pretty high. Our buildings look good, right? Our funding is coming from the state. Our buildings are a separate pot, okay? And the way we're funded is by a formula that gives us extra money for the kids really who need it the most. Our students who are coming from households of poverty, our students who are learning English, and the list goes on. In that category, our students are around 15 or 16%. So we're only getting, again, in a budget of around $214 million, $5 million extra in supplemental money. That's it. It's 2% of the budget. We're 9 out of 10, we're 1 out of 10, putting it another way, in terms of school funding.
Why is that? Why are our funding regulations so different?
Well, there was a master plan in the early 2010s, and it came from the state, and it was based on an equity formula, and it was to say that you have a count of students. They're called the unduplicated count. And if you have students who are learning English, students who are from households of poverty, students from foster homes and homeless, the higher percent of those students you have, the more supplemental, or they call it concentrated grant money that we receive. We have, I'm looking at my math here, we have 14%, I think I said, which is on average lower than the state. So we get less supplemental money. We get a base money that's the same, but there are districts that are paid or are funded way more that have 90% of that unduplicated count. And it's equity too. What it's saying is that the state is putting a priority on the students of needs, you know, students that come from households of poverty, students that are learning English.
Okay, so you talked about inflation earlier. So what's going on with inflation?
Well, have you gone and bought a burrito lately,
Oh yeah,
right? Or a hamburger, or a slice of pizza? It's gone way up. You know, I mean, it's gone way up, and the Bay Area inflation alone in the last 2 years is north of 8%. We're only getting what's called, to make up for that inflation, we're getting a cost of living adjustment from the state of only 1%. So it's pretty tough. And all these things work together. You know, that in combination with declining enrollment, COVID money going away, it's pretty tough. And again, we're not the only ones going through it.
Do you have anything else you would like to say on the topic?
Yeah, as a parting shot, I'd like to say it is amazing what we do in Pleasanton, and I want to give credit to the teachers, our support staff, all of Team PUSD. Our parents are participatory, our community is supportive, and even though 9 out of 10 districts, did I say that, are funded more than we are, our brand is strong. We are a go-to district. Our reputation and the ranking is phenomenal. I mean, when you look at High Foothill, go Falcons, and when you look at Amador, I mean, I was a high school principal. These are unbelievable high schools. All of our schools are great, starting from TK all the way through adult ed and the like, all the programs we have. And we have culture. And it's my job not to just look at the money, but to continue to build that positive culture where we all work together. We will get through this. I'm old. I've had decades of observations of what happens, and I've seen a lot of valleys and I've seen a lot of peaks in finance. We're going to be okay.
All right. Thank you, Doctor, for being here, and this has been our State of the District.